that, then you're right, we can start really doing some stuff. So our Standard Home Partnership Program, which we've got running at the moment, that's a program for group home builders that enables them to get their consents out within 5 working days. So those jobs don't go on hold, they just go, they pick the phone up. There's an undertaking that they will respond back and provide the information we want within 24 hours, or basically that consent's not in the system in that program, and that works really, really well. And it works on the same thing. They need to be able to demonstrate they've got a qualifying quality assurance system. We know they're competent because they've demonstrated to us time and time again. We've got an audit over the top, and for those folk, we can really speed up those the processing. We're looking at the moment at extending that into the construction end of the spectrum. But believe it or not, many folk actually don't want us to reduce building inspections. So we had conversations with some really large companies that are very, very competent, who have said, look, Ian, it's great, but we actually don't want you to reduce your inspections in the residential sector. We really like the additional independent quality control, quality assurance that comes in that you guys provide. We'd like you to continue to deliver all of those inspections. Thanks very much. So how much of that is really the fact they appreciate our efforts, which I'm sure they do, and how much of it is actually driven by liability and wanting to keep us pulled in is a question.
And my other question is, do you have enough building inspectors throughout the region? I'm thinking of the north, where there's an enormous amount of growth going on, and I'm not too sure whether you've got enough.
No, I've currently got 7 vacancies for building inspectors. I've got a number of, the question, have I got enough, is a difficult one. So we've got a number of different initiatives which will result in reductions in inspections. So, by dealing with the group home builders, getting those quality assurance systems in place, we'd be keen to start reducing the number of inspections we do on the right type of jobs with the right type of people. We've got some efficiencies we gain out of our mobile technology. We're doing some work at the moment on a electronic inspection booking and scheduling system, which will increase how effective we can be in our scheduling systems. All of those things will make a difference. So the problem I've got is bigger than 7 vacancies, though. If someone said, well, Ian, look, how many more do you need? I would say, well, I definitely need those 7. How many more of those 7 do I need? If they were all up to speed and I had another 3 months to get them all trained, I probably wouldn't be too far off the mark, my personal view. But at the moment, a large number of my folk are new. I've only had them about 6 months, and it takes some time to bring them up to speed. So I could certainly do with more. My issue is really my ability to recruit. It's not my establishment or the number of vacancies I've got. It's actually it's my ability to retain people. It's my ability to recruit the right people in the Auckland market.
Thank you, Casey, Councillor Casey.
Oh, thanks, Ian. Just way back at the beginning, when you talked about the number of people using cheap imports, did you say that how many have you discovered so far?
I was trying to remember. I was actually. Do you mean different types of products or instances?
Across the board, instances.
Oh, too many. I'm not sure we've actually have a number for you of instances of product that's been substituted, because quite often it's dealt with on site. It's not necessarily brought back to us.
I'm interested in, so how much of the 30% that failed would have shoddy imported products?
Most of those will be because the work isn't up to standard rather than the actual product being used.
Right, so the people who are importing the shoddy product, you ask them to remove it and replace it. What about the prosecutions for using the shoddy product? You said later on in the presentation you had 3.
So in terms of the products that we're currently seeing, they probably fit into a number of different categories. So there's products which have endorsements on them which indicate that they comply with the New Zealand Australian standards. And because of the price and because of the way they seem to behave, we have our doubts whether those endorsements are correct. So there's those ones, and tough and glass would be a good example of that. Normally we pick it up because we end up with a misspelt standard. We end up with no license number, or the license number we can't track back. So I guess there's that type of product. Are we picking them all up? Probably not. You know, we're picking the stuff up when it's misspelt and when it's really obvious. You know, if it's got a standard on it or an endorsement on it, it's very hard for us to pick up.
Well, see, the stuff that you have picked up is obviously fake. Has there been a prosecution of the developer
We're working with
as a
MB
result?
in that space because clearly it's not just in the Auckland market. It has been imported into New Zealand, so it's affecting all building around New Zealand. So we are working together with MB to notify other councils what's happening. You might be aware of other initiatives.
Yeah, so we're working with the Consumers Institute, with MB, with a lot of the organisations who are on that list on this product issue. So we've had a number of working party meetings in terms of how do we better control what is a complex issue that needs some considerable thought. So the asphalt tiles would be a good example. We had an inspection probably about 3 months ago that identified some wiring which we believe was non-compliant, so we made a complaint to the Electrical Association, and they're investigating that. I'm not sure what the results of that investigation are. In terms of the asphalt tile issue, I think we've made a complaint to the consumer group. So we made a complaint to them, and yeah, I mean, a lot of our focus is trying to address the issue. And
I understand that, but there's also, you know, I'd like to know which developers are replacing bona fide product with cheap imports knowingly. So I wouldn't be wanting to employ them in the future. So my next question was, any of those who have been importing the cheap product, are they selling services to the council? Are they?
So if we, quite often when we start making inquiries to try and work out how these products ended up on site, it becomes quite a tangled web, and in some cases the people involved seem to have very poor memories in terms of exactly where they got these products from. So we're making complaints to you know, to the LPB board. But you know, for example, the asphalt tile issue, people have very poor memories in terms of where some of these products have actually come from. And interestingly, in some of those cases, the only reason we find out about it is other members of the industry actually have an interest in actually and advise us. The ability for our building inspectors to be able to identify, in some cases, the difference between some of those products and the bona fide ones is actually quite challenging.
Homeowners getting a house built aren't always ignorant of the fact that products are being substituted for cheaper product either,
Exactly.
because cost is driving a lot of people. Without consideration, you get what you pay for.
My last question was just about that, nearly the end slide where you're talking about UK imports, and I was listening carefully, and I don't get it. Are you sending inspections to the south of England for somebody to do a desktop exercise, or are they coming out here to do the inspections?
So what we're looking at doing is we want to be able to maintain our service levels, and we've done some work looking at our forecasts for the volumes that we're expecting to get in terms of building consents, and we recognise that in the commercial area there's certainly going to be some real pressure in the next couple of years. So, you know, thinking ahead, it would be very useful to set up some arrangements where we can actually get some parties to assist us in commercial processing. So, as I mentioned, the ability to be able to send work to other parts of the world or other parts of the country exists.
So
with our
are you
digital
talking
channel.
about desktop analysis, not real people coming to
That's
New Zealand?
correct. No, so we're not doing inspections on site. No, they're going to be processing plans. So the application. So imagine at the moment, and if we look at our traditional way of working, we end up with an application with a whole lot of documentation and plans that get submitted to us for consideration. Increasingly, we'll be getting those in a digital format. Now, so when we get it digitally, we're in a position to be able to shift it anywhere we want to, where we can find people who are competent to do our work. We'll obviously put a quality assurance process over the top. We'll do the similar sorts of things that we've done with Wellington City Council and Porirua City Council, working collaboratively, identifying are there any local variations between, you know, what we consider here in Auckland and what we consider in, for example, Wellington or Christchurch. Obviously, seismicity is a significant issue of difference. And then we work out what those differences are, and we start working together. We obviously have a higher focus on our sample rate with our quality assurance system when we start, and once we start seeing we're getting a good quality, we're actually able to start targeting that quality assurance system more effectively. So, yeah, it works as well, or it should work as well, for people who are processing our work in Wellington as it would somewhere else.
Thank you. Councillor Quacks.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Ian. It's a hugely interesting and subject, and in terms of the illustrations that you showed about some of the work, the shoddy workmanship and shoddy products that you've spoken about, I wonder if you could give us some idea of how much we might actually be missing, because I suspect that you perhaps, despite all the good work that's going on, you just don't know what you don't know, and so there may be a lot of work out there that is being missed.
I don't know about a lot of work. We've set our system, our monitoring system up to give us the greatest degree of surety that we can in a system that involves, for a residential 3-bedroom single-level house, 12 inspections. So 12 inspections, I've probably got someone on site for half an hour for those inspections, probably an hour for a couple of those inspections. And that for a build that probably takes 3 months. So I've shown you some of those issues. In some cases, we've had instances where there's some concealment that's taken place. Distraction is always common. So you know, our inspectors are trained to be able to ensure they focus on what they're doing. They've got a checklist which actually supports them to pick off those key issues. We rotate our folks, so you won't see one building inspector coming back and doing all the inspections on a job. And we've got a very strong competency framework, so it ensures that the people who are doing an inspection have the competency to do work at that competency. So we're doing all the things we can. We make use of professional engineers and where we need to, we get peer reviews from other independent engineers reviewing their work. So we're doing a belt and braces approach, but it's complex. And if you said, are they able to pick up every single thing that could be wrong? I would say no. Are they going to pick up most of the things which are likely to cause a lack of performance in the building? I would say absolutely yes, but they certainly won't be picking up absolutely everything. And I guess that's the concern. So my concern, I guess, is that, and concern of my team and the industry, is that at the moment we've got some folk who are in some cases inexperienced or relatively inexperienced. They're not getting the supervision they need. The high level of coordination that's often required on site to ensure we get a quality build isn't taking place on some sites. And some sites, quality control really is my team. They're providing quality control on a job which just isn't satisfactory, and I think everyone recognises that. And as long as that situation continues, I will continue to say I'm confident we're not catching everything. So if you ask me, well, do you think we've got a real problem? Should we be concerned about the quality of housing in New Zealand? I would say no. We've got some absolutely excellent people. The issues we're getting are with a fairly small percentage of the of folk. The supervisory issue, I think, is a slightly wider problem, but tends to result in probably not as serious issues as incompetence or just lack of knowledge. And as I say, the system we've got in place is designed to pick up the big stuff, the stuff where we've got that are going to lead to non-performance, and I'd say we'd be picking most of that up. Yeah.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you. Councillor Darby.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Ian. This has been a really informative report, and you put it pretty candidly, and I greatly appreciate it. So thank you for that. Just in terms of, I think within your unit, you've got a specialist reclad
Yes.
weather tightness team. What's the status of that team? Is it starting to wind down? And do the skills of that team often get transferred to other applications that might not be strictly in the so-called, weather tightness claims category?